Hi guys, I don't know, I forget how to do this. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or hello if you are new here. Today we're going to be talking about every single book I have ever read, which is only about 50 books, but I've been reading for 3 years. I started it because I wanted something good for my mental health to get me just kind of like out of the real world and into like a fake world where I don't have to think of anything. I love book videos, so I thought I'd make my own. But before we get started, I want to give a special thanks to the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp. You guys have been watching me. You know I'm a big advocate for mental health. I'm a huge advocate that therapy is good for anyone and everyone should be in therapy. This day and age, life is hard. Relationships are hard. Friendships are hard. Family relationships are hard. Romantic relationships are hard. Relationships are hard, and it's something you really need to keep up with. And with everything else going on in your life, especially adulthood, as I am learning, it's hard to keep up with your relationships. For example, I live in Iowa now, and from college and working in sports, my friends are all over the place. And it's so hard to be able to keep up with all of those friendships because I'm always like, am I doing enough to stay up to date with this friendship? Am I being a good friend? My anxiety gets in the way of these things, and then I start overthinking. I'm a bad friend. They hate me. We're not good friends, because they're not right here to just be like, hey, let's hang out. Relationships aren't easy, and you're not alone. Trust me. So stop asking your tough relationship questions into an empty void. My sponsor, BetterHelp, will connect you with a therapist who can help you find answers to some of these questions. Instead of being stuck in an endless loop of questioning yourself, you can talk through relationship concerns with someone who's trained to help you find real answers. Fill out a questionnaire and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. They literally matched me in an hour. Easily switch therapists anytime at no cost if it's not the right fit. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. There are so many kinds of relationships that can be strengthened through therapy, not just the romantic ones. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Maggie Atchison and get 10% off your first month of therapy. I love therapy. So we'll be going in order from just like 3 stars to 5 stars. I don't think I've ever rated anything a 2-star. Up first, we have Gone Girl. I read this so long ago, and I think if I reread it, I would give it a higher rating, but I gave it 3 stars. It was just a really long book, and it was one of the first books I read, and it was just like, it took a lot to get through it. I also think that the longer I draw a book out reading it, the lower I give it a rating, if that makes sense. Then we have The Notebook. So this is actually the first book that got me into reading, so it's kind of crazy I gave it a 3 stars because I obviously enjoyed it enough to pick up another book. I don't really remember anything about it. I think it was sad, and I don't like sad, so that's probably why I rated it low. And then this one is probably controversial, but I read Malibu Rising, and I gave it a 3 stars, and you know, let me see if I wrote anything about it. I did. I said it was decent, but I was never wondering what was going to happen next. A lot of the book felt like information that didn't matter, never found anything really exciting. I wasn't invested into the plot, if I remember correctly. And then we have Troubles in Paradise. This is number 3 in the Paradise series. Crazy enough, we read that series. I read the last 2 books of that series in the Virgin Islands, which is where it takes place. I read it with Megan and Sierra, and it was so fun because like we literally got to go to the places she was talking about. Most of Ellen's books don't have like crazy plots. It's more of like it's like a beach read. Like it's not really intense, but that one I felt like it was just kind of like not even wrapping everything up. Like the story could be over in the second book. Then we have The Fury. We read this for book club, and I was really looking forward to it because Alex Michaelides, I don't know how to say his name, wrote The Silent Patient, and that was a really good book. But this book just felt like, I don't know how else to explain it. There was a pretty crazy plot though. I rated The Midnight Library 3 stars. I loved the story and the message behind it. There is trigger warnings if you're going to read that, but it just felt very repetitive. There was really it was just the same thing over and over again, and I wish there was like a little different something going on with that, you know? But it's a great message and a great story. All right, The last one I gave a 3 stars was The Rule Book. I suggested this book for book club because I enjoyed The Cheat Sheet, which is the first book in that series, but it's like you can read them as standalones. I don't know if it's because I read this book after I've been like reading fantasy and thrillers or what, but it was so cheesy. It's about this guy on a professional football team and his agent, and it's kind of like enemies to lovers. And I don't know if it's because I worked in football that like everything just seemed so tacky and unrealistic, but I do have one call out. There was a point in the book where some guy went to the 50-yard line to bow to his girlfriend. Like, that's the level of cheesy I'm talking about. And sometimes that's great, sometimes it's fun, so love, so fun. This one was just a little bit too much for me. All right, now let's get into our 4-star reads. Up first, we have Safe Haven by Nicholas Sparks. This is a book that I read. I read this book back in 2021, so I guess I've been reading for more than 3 years. It's 2025. I remember Nicholas Sparks was one of the authors I first started reading before like I found Colleen Hoover and went down that path. This book was good. I remember it really being emotional. I think that's why I didn't give it 5 stars, because once again, I don't like to be sad. I do remember this book being really good, and I'm pretty sure it's a movie, so you could watch the movie. Maybe not. I don't know. Oh, and then I have A Court of Thorns and Roses, better known as ACOTAR, and I gave this one a 4 stars. It took me a long time to read it. It takes me a long time to read fantasy just because I don't always, when I read a fantasy book, I have to be thinking. I have to be thinking about, oh, what is this? What is that? Because you're in a whole new world. And I love that, but I don't always love to think. This book I gave it 4 stars because I just felt like the world building was a lot, and it was good, but also everyone was hyping it up. I think I had like really high expectations. But I do think of this series. I've only read that book and the second book, which I gave the second book also 4 stars. I think I like the second book more, but I do think about that series a lot, so I do want to finish it eventually. It's just not as good as Fourth Wing. Then we have Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. We're gonna start getting into my Colleen Hoover ratings. Of course, Book Shop persuaded me to read all of her books. So we have Ugly Love. I remember after I read it, I was like, should I give it a 4.5 or a 4? I ended up going with a 4, but it was good. And I love books that the cover makes sense after you read the book. It's like one of my favorite things. Confess. Confess is one of the Colleen Hoover books I think about the most, and it's weird because it's not one of her really popular books. It just has like a cool aspect. People have to write confessions and put it in this box thing, I believe. And I just love that. Like, I have never read a book like that. I love books that have like bits, you could call it, that you've never heard about in a different book, because a lot of books have the same stuff. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo was also a 4 star. That was really good. I was really glad that I liked that book by Taylor Jenkins Reid because I didn't love Malibu Rising. That book is crazy. It was really fun to read, and I wasn't expecting a plot twist, but there was something at the end that shook me to my core. And I love a book that gives you a plot twist when you're not expecting the book to have a plot twist. And then we have the first book in the Paradise series. It's called Winter in Paradise by Ellen Hildebrand. I gave that a 4 because the plot was good. I love Ellen books. I can speed through her books, which is good because I can't speed through many books. And then we have the Mindfuck series. I gave all of these books a 4 or a 4.5, but I would probably go back and give them all a 5, or I give the series a 5. And the series is a 5-star series. This book is so crazy. I think about it often. It's about a detective who falls in love with a serial killer, but he doesn't know she's a serial killer, and he's also he's working on her case, like the serial killer case that she is the serial killer for, and they're dating, and it's so crazy. Oh my god. They're all pretty much like novellas. I think there's 5 books, but I read them all back to back to back. I read them so fast. It was like 700 pages total. Holy cow, that book is so crazy. And like, it's just like a mind, like the title says. It literally messes with your brain, but it's so good. I'm moving it to 5. Like, it's a 5, so. Then we have Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. That book is also probably a 4.5. So good. I love the story, but I can't remember all of the bits and pieces, which is why it's not a 5. The Silent Patient probably has the biggest plot twist in a book I've ever read. I remember exactly where I was when I was reading it. I was on the plane to Hawaii, and Megan and Sarah were like, Maggie, you need to finish this. Like, you need to get to the plot twist. The plot twist is crazy. And yeah, that book's good. I recommend that book to a lot of people who need a book to read, because that's a good book. Daisy Jones and the Six is also 4 stars. I wrote, a good light read, wasn't liking how there was no climax. I don't think that's the right word. Maybe it is. Plot twist or anything to keep me on the edge of my seat. Once again, it was kind of like an Ellen book. It was just like a, here's the story, read the story. Next, we have Beach Read by Emily Henry. I gave this one a 4.5, and I always think about it, so I might move it to a 5. I'm moving all my 4s to 5s. I kept wanting to grab this book. It was filled with so many great messages and quotes. At some points, the female main character annoyed me a little, like she was trying to ruin a good thing, but I guess that was the point of the book. It just didn't seem 100% necessary. I loved the concept and how everything wrapped up at the end. Honestly, great book. What Happens in Paradise, number 2 of the Paradise series, got a 4. Let's see if I wrote anything about this one. I said it was a feel-good book. I enjoyed the storylines and characters. The plot was lacking, though. For this book, we said we didn't find anything out, but there really wasn't much to find out. I rated it a 4 because the vibes are a 5 and the plot is a 3.5. Okay, queen. Then we have a Reminders of Him. I gave it 4 star. I do still think Colleen Hoover is a good, easy... She writes in a way that's easy to read. 28 Summers by Elin Hilderbrand. Again, I might move this to a 5 star. I'm like, what are my 5 stars at this point? Because these are good books. That book is so good, guys. This is why I gave it a 4. I remembered because the end was sad. I said the end was so sad, I hated it. The vibes of this book were so high, and it was a feel-good book that made me happy. There wasn't a ton of thought needed to be put into this book. It felt like more of something I was doing to escape. You're seeing a theme of I don't like to think when I read. The Obsession, I gave 4 stars. I don't really remember it. I had no clue what to expect going into this book, but it kept me on my toes. There were many parts of the book that came out of nowhere. I never felt like I truly knew where the story was going. I do love a book where I don't know what it's about. This book I hadn't heard about from like booktubers or book talk, so I was invested. I rated the first 3 books of the Inheritance Games 4 stars. I haven't read the 4th book, I think, or the 5th book, however many are out. I've only read up to the 3rd. This book was good, YA. It's just like a fun mystery game, kind of. Like, I want to know why this girl got the money. It's about this girl who gets all of this money from a random man's will that you don't even know. I read The Last Thing He Told Me. I remember this book really well, so why it's probably a 4 stars, because it was good. I said the ending was amazing and the book hooked me pretty fast. There were a few parts where I felt bored throughout the book, but overall, very good book. It was pretty hard to predict what would happen. I feel like I'm saying a lot, but I'm giving you nothing. Hotel Nantucket, another Elin Hilderbrand book. This book had a plot. It had a lot of characters. And like side plots to keep track of, but it was really fun. I wasn't sure I would like it because there was like a ghost and like paranormal stuff, and I was like, this is kind of weird, but I really actually enjoyed it, and the ending surprised me. I was trying to predict something and I just predicted it wrong. So I read the fine print and terms and conditions. Those are the first 2 books in the Dreamland Billionaire series, and let me tell you, I love these books. It's like Grumpy Sunshine. You guys are very rich. I learned reading these books. I love to read about rich people because let me act rich while I'm reading this. They own Disney World. It's not Disney World, obviously, but it's like Disney World, and it's so good. And all 3 of the books follow a different brother. So I have the last book to read, but I think I've been putting it off because I don't want to end that series, because I do enjoy that series. Then I read the cheat sheet. This is the one that I said was the first book to the rule book, even though you can read them alone. This book I think I read when I was in my like cheesy romance era, and I gave it a 4 stars. I don't really have much to say about it other than it's just like a cute cheesy romance, but not as cheesy as the other book. I gave It Starts With Us 4 stars. I think I would move that down to 3, but I did love It Ends With Us, and I love those characters, so I think I just like was on the infatuation with those characters. But I would give it a 3 stars. It kind of felt like a money grab. It wasn't necessary to write. The author was just giving you what everyone was asking for. Listen for the Lie. When I tell you I can't tell you, I don't remember what this book is about. We read this book and then The Boyfriend, which is also 4 stars, back to back for book club, and they just intertwine in my brain. They're both thrillers. Listen for the Lie is about this guy who's trying to figure out a murder, and this girl has, everyone thinks this girl killed someone, I think, and he has a podcast where he's trying to like uncover if she really did it or not. And then The Boyfriend is about, oh, her friend dies, and then they're trying to figure out who killed the friend or something. Both really good. I was on the edge of my seat for both of those, but I can't remember what they're about. Now let's get into my 5-star reads. I'm excited for this. November 9th. This book was the first book ever, the only book ever to make me cry. I'm not a crier, so it's a big deal. That's automatically why I had to give it 5 stars, because I was like, oh, you're pulling on my heartstrings so much that you get a 5. And the plot twist, like guys, this book has everything. It has romance, it has emotions, it has plot twists, it has mystery. That might be my favorite Colleen Hoover book. Oh, that's not my favorite Colleen Hoover book. My favorite Colleen Hoover book is definitely Verity. When I tell you guys, everyone should read this book. Even though Colleen Hoover, I guess, is like out, we're not reading her anymore. This book is so good. This book had me hiding under my covers at 3 a.m. because I felt like the creepiness of it was in my room. This is one of the books I stayed up till 5 a.m. to finish because I was like, I cannot sleep without finishing this book. You must read it. You must read it. It's basically about a girl who gets chosen to write this author's books, finish the series, because the author is like in a coma. I'm sorry if I'm not describing all of this exactly right, because it's been years since I read this, but like the author is like in the house and the husband, and she goes and lives with them. It's insane. Colleen Hoover really did it with this one. Gave It Ends With Us 5 stars. I just thought that was like a very good message, and it was written well, and it had me loving the characters. Message is just like why I gave it 5 stars. Honestly, it was such a good message. Trigger warnings, it talks about abusive relationships, and it really opened my eyes up to what people deal with in those, and it was just a really good message. And it honestly taught me a lot. Like, I wasn't expecting to read this book and be taught things, but it taught me a lot. Then I have Scythe. This was one of our first book club books. So good. I will be finishing the series eventually. It's about the world is just like so healthy and good that there's no ways to die. Like, it's so progressed, like cars don't crash, there's no cancer. So there has to be a way to kill people, to like get rid of people, or the world's gonna be so overpopulated. So they have scythes who glean people, which is like killing them. But there's like this whole strategy on how you have to kill people. And there are just so many twists and turns in this book. And it's like a fantasy book, but it's not really fantasy, because like you don't have to be learning a lot about a new world. And I think that's why I loved it, because like it wasn't our world that we live in right now, but it was easy to understand. I gave A Good Girl's Guide to Murder 5 stars. I don't really remember. I think I liked the characters. I read it like at the peak of when everyone was reading it, but I didn't go on to read any more in the series, so I have nothing to say about it. And then we have Project Hail Mary. I think I technically gave it a 4.75 stars, but we'll just bump that up to a 5 because it's so good. One of my favorite book characters ever is in that book. It's about this teacher who is getting sent to space, and they're like, you have to save the world. The world is going to end, you must save it. And it is so good. It's crazy how much the story can be when he's just like in a rocket ship. And the ending, I love the ending. I can't really give you anything of my favorite parts because that would ruin it all, but I will say it's a lot of science, but you don't need to understand the science, if that makes sense. Like, don't get hung up on the science. And lastly, we have Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I am currently reading Onyx Storm, the third book of the series that just came out. And when I tell you this is my favorite series ever, Fourth Wing is my favorite book I have ever read. The characters just do it for me. I'm trying to get my boyfriend Sam to read this. I've been telling everyone to read this. Like, I need someone to be obsessed with this like I am. And the plot, the love, the fighting, like the war, it's a war college. These people go to a war college and then they get a dragon. And guys, it's just, I can't even do it justice explaining it. It is so good. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you have heard of it, but I highly recommend everyone to read that. I'm currently reading the third book in that, and I've been slacking on my reading, so that's why I'm hoping making this video gets me excited about reading again. Gets me out of a slump. But thank you guys for watching so much. If you made it here, I love you, and comment down below your favorite book and I might add it to my TBR. If you like these book videos, let me know, and I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!